Hello, my TikTokers. How are you? Today, I want to ask you to be honest or dishonest. That is the question. Well, I was reading an article this morning and it was talking about clones representing people and going on interviews. And they were saying it was unethical. So what's supposed to be happening is they had a lady by the name of Pina, and she was employed to recruit people to go into the corporate world. You know, if you're worried about getting a job, you're not really good about presenting yourself, like many of us. I'm useless at presenting myself in an interview. What they would do, this company, is produce a clone, and based on your interview, that clone would represent you at the interview and get you the job. Now, for me, I think it's a brilliant idea, but some people are saying it's dishonest and unethical. Now, supposing you're someone like me, I've got a pretty impressive resume, but I do not know how to present myself well. I put myself down. I minimize what I've done. I minimize all my achievements. I don't know whether it comes from a background of them saying, you show off, or, they call you vain or something. So what I tend to do is I go to the extreme when I go for an interview and I fail. And as a result, I've never got a job I'm really qualified to do. So in this situation, a clone would be perfect for me. That clone would take my resume, it would look like me, and to me, it's not being dishonest because it's not saying I can do anything I haven't done. And it would go into the interview arena and present the resume and answer all the questions on my behalf. Now, do you think that's dishonest? Or do you think that's okay? Apparently, they're coming down hard on this company, saying it's totally unethical. Now, if you were somebody like me, a lot of people are afraid to go on interviews. I don't know if you're one of them, but if you're someone like me, I dread interviews and I 100 to 1 times fail them. The only reason I got jobs is because I was recruited under the old policy. You would go into an employment office, or you'd go into the HR, they would look at you, they would have a chat, and you would get the job on the spot. That's my era. So more recently, my last interview, successful interview, was about 11, 12 years ago. And they weren't as stringent as they are now. Now everything's based on your competencies and goodness knows what. And you have to kind of give examples of what you've done and how you did it, and statistics and all sorts. And why I know I'm useless at interviews is that I work in a department, I can't say the name, but I work in a certain department. And I went for a job about that department, but at a higher level. Would you believe I didn't even know how to answer what my department did? Because my brain shuts down. In an interview situation, my brain shuts down. I do not know how to present myself. In my past, I've worked at a very prestigious organization in New York. And I worked for a very high-ranking delegate. Do you call them delegate or diplomat? Anyway, very high-ranking. Would you believe that when I came back and I went for an interview for something pretty basic, all I said was something like, "Oh, I used to make her cups of teas, and I'd take her coat, and I'd take the coat of her visitors." Instead of saying, scheduling her hotel appointments, making sure she met with these high delegates, greeting high-ranking I can't even remember them now, but greeting high-ranking diplomats and stuff like that. I focused on making her a cup of tea and bringing in her coats and the coats of her visitors as though I was a skivvy. And of course, the job I was going for wouldn't take on something like that. All I'm saying is that if a clone had represented me that day, I would have got that job. Put me in the job, I can do it, but I can't sell myself. So if you're like me, would that clone benefit you? If you could get a clone to go for an interview for you based on your resume, would you take that up, or would you call it being dishonest? I think only where the dishonesty comes in that clone isn't actually you. And okay, as a human being, as opposed to a clone, you're more likely to have emotions come into play. You're more likely to dither. You might forget your words. You might be a bit disorganized. But a clone will probably represent you perfectly. Now, if you consider that if you're disorganized in your presentation, that's usually due to nerves. A clone won't have any nerves. So is that dishonest? I'd really like your feedback on this one, because I'm at a loss. I'd like to think that it's totally normal. But what I do think is dishonest is when you pay somebody to take your driving test for you. That's what I call unethical and dishonest. Now, if that was the case, then I'd say, yeah, you can't do that, because driving, you're going to, you could be a dangerous driver. I'm in my car, so there's a lot of things distracting me. Yeah, you'd be a dangerous driver because you can't drive. You didn't actually take the test. Similarly, if you go for the language of life test, or the one that's to get your immigration status, if you send somebody to do that, then I can understand that being unethical, because you don't know the answers. You haven't been there. Somebody else is answering for you. But with regard to an interview where it's based on your CV, not a contrived CV, it's based on your CV and it's based on who you are, your background, I don't think that's unethical. But I'd really like to have your thoughts on whether you think it's dishonest or honest, and whether or not, if such a clone existed, would you take advantage of it if you could? And I think I'm going to stop it there. Bye for now.